Welcome to Cross Examine with the Gerbers. I'm Ken Gerber. This is Megan Gerber. And today we have a special guest with us. We're thrilled to have JTfollowsJC. Welcome, Joe.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome to Phoenix, all the way from the East Coast.
Yeah, about 6 hours worth of flying, but well worth it. Yeah, get out here. I love Arizona. Arizona's awesome.
Well, we're excited to have you here. We got a lot of things to talk to you about. We're just super interested in what you do, and we think people that watch our podcasts have a lot to learn as well. So,
well,
awesome.
Hold on. I want to say something. I really like the fact that you got married in Sedona, and so did we. I know that's personalizing it, but he's already cool to me because he got married in Sedona.
Totally.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we went up to the top of Cathedral Rock, and literally I was telling the guys the story last night that it couldn't have been more random that we just decided I live at the beach. A lot of people do the beach wedding thing, and we're like, that's kind of been done. Yeah. And hiking became our thing. And then, so we just decided, hey, we should go do a hike and go find like a nice mountain vista and just get, the picture, but we're going to look awesome and all that kind of stuff. And at one point we decided that we were going to elope. And so at that point we were like, we could really go anywhere. And it was like literally like the first name that came to our mind was Sedona.
Oh, and the pictures are breathtaking. They look AI. Let's just
they look like, it looks like a matte painting behind us. That's what people ask, but it was, believe it or not, it's just the right conditions, the right time of day, the right photographer, the right guy who's the right kind of pastor who was willing to marry us. It was, everything kind of came together.
You guys really cool. Actually climbed to the top of a mountain and got married up there.
Yeah, that's what was funny because we have done a lot of hiking, but on the East Coast, it's typically that's what it is. Like you're hiking up some dirt trail to eventually get to the top to see some kind of a nice view. But so when we were researching it, we were like, well, how hard of a hike is it? And then you had all the comments were saying, well, it's part of it, it's a climb. And I was like, what do they mean by a climb? And then we got there and I realized you can't just walk up. You have to actually put your hands on the mountain and pull yourself up. And so that was the funny part about getting all our gear up. Like I pretty much just wore what I wore, except for like I had different shoes with me. So I brought a little backpack, but my wife had to bring her dress and then she had to get changed up there, but she had mostly everything done. And yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's kind of like, if you like hiking, it's part of it is the adventure.
Right.
I guess the good thing is I married somebody who's willing to go that kind of extra mile for the Instagram pic or, what I mean? Just for the pictures to have them forever. And it was well worth it. Yeah. We couldn't have been more pleased when we saw the pictures, and just the whole week was just amazing. Cause again, I'm from like the flatlands. We have nothing like that. So when we come out here, I was like, I guess we made a good choice. I guess God kind of guided us to that moment, and it was perfect.
Definitely. And I'm biased because, like I said, we got married there too. But
awesome.
I love it out there.
We traded some pictures last night, saw some of yours, you saw some of ours. And it's funny because we have this other picture of after we took our pictures in the same area for our wedding, we went and sat on a bench, and Megan was wearing these flip-flops, and she had all the red rock, all the orange feet from it. So we got a picture of her orange feet onto us, and it's just great.
But talking about that orange rock, you had mentioned something last night that I had not heard of. Could you go into that a little bit, or is that something that's too difficult to kind of hop into?
It's actually a pretty simple idea. It's just that when you come from the out east, and then everybody who visits and they like to hike and they go to national parks and just strange rock formations in Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, pretty much all around the whole western part of America, you see these rock formations that just seem so unusual. And for the East Coast, it is, but I think they're unusual just altogether. This is a very distinct part of the world.
Yeah, you showed one that looked like a pyramid to us last night.
Right. So when we were in Sedona, there was actually a trail called Pyramid Trail, and the vantage point I had never seen it, and it looks like a 3-sided pyramid. It looks perfect. When we walked around it, it wasn't as perfect like that, but it's really hard to get the scale of it, and kind of like you're from a nice high view, you can see it a lot better. But yeah, there's this theory that goes around is that some of these places like Sedona, where it looks like you have kind of normal colored mountains in certain parts, and then you have like these really orange red rocks on top of it. They look like they might have been structures one day or like a time ago. And is this a situation where the Bible describes the day of the Lord, the mountains are going to melt like wax? And was this like fervent heat that melted these things? Like we were talking about the Grand Canyon. And even when I believed, before I was even looking into this, I believe the Bible's the word of God and I believe it's true. So it made more sense to me that the Grand Canyon could have been caused by the flood, the deluge in Noah's day, versus the Colorado River. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense to me. But now I'm even starting to look back as like, but what if it was more recent than that? What if some of the post-apocalyptic looking landscape out west what if it really is that? Because you ever watched like Hollywood movies like Mad Max? You watch like there's a show on Amazon that's based on a video game called Fallout, and there are all these movies. I think what was the other one is the Book of Eli.
Right.
And they're all taking place in this, just the world had just like, it was like a nuclear apocalypse or something crazy happened. And a lot of times they shoot them out around here.
Oh,
and they don't have to do CGI. They don't have to do anything to dress up the landscape.
Already looks that way.
It looks totally like that's what happened. Another really good example is if you go to, it's called the Valley of Fire. It's about an hour outside of Vegas. It's kind of like Sedona, except it's all kind of more spread out.
Yeah.
And as soon as you hike in there, you see all kinds of stuff. But there was a trail, I think it was called Domes. There's a big old sign about all the lists of the Hollywood features that were filmed there.
Yeah, those are always really cool when you see that.
But I mean, it makes sense. Like you go out there and you're like, this looks unusual. And so there's been some researchers who've actually looked into some of these things where in some of these red, quote unquote, mountains, they found stamped bricks in them. Like this, it's almost like there was a pocket of preservation. I mean, I don't know what to say other than I've seen the pictures where it shows the degrading of certain kinds of brick that looks like it's turning into natural stone, and where the fusing of the bricks together.
It's just kind of eroding away.
It's really hard to say. Like when you see something like that appears like it could have been a building, was it one? But yeah, you do see like the different layers or the different kind of phases of like heat, and then if part of it was preserved,
right.
Place like Petra in Jordan.
Yeah.
Some people believe they just carved those places out of the mountains, but some people believe that some of the parts around it were melted. It looks like it's been scorched.
It was the actual building, and now it just doesn't look that way.
Right. Now you only see pockets of preservation. So what if like the face of it is actually, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what was saved, but the rest of it looks like a mountain now.
Well, and we kind of jump right into some of the subject matter without really giving any kind of an intro to our viewers as to, what you do on your channel. But it's interesting talking about Petra and places like that. That's really what drew Megan and me into thinking about these types of things, as we started to look at all of the old buildings, the old temples and churches that were just on these massive, massive scale. And to find out that the technology to do those now is like almost non-existent. And so we started going down that trail of figuring out, well, how'd they do that? If they're using really primitive tools and they're doing it over a couple of hundred years, how did they get so exact where it's within centimeters of perfection, that type of thing? And so that drew us down this whole idea of the ancient civilizations and some of those things, and really led us to some other subjects that you hit on pretty regularly. So why don't you kind of give us a summary of what you get into with your podcasts?
That's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, to when we started talking about the buildings, my name is JTfollowsJC. So JC being Jesus Christ, JT being my initials. So it's all based on a biblical framework. I have a biblical worldview. And so I say that the Bible is the word of God and I believe it, and everything else I'm kind of questioning outside of that. And so a lot of times when I was just making content, I started to do historical things, because I always realized I almost felt it was safer too on TikTok, because they would ban you for so many things. You could post something about an old conspiracy and it would be safer.
Right.
Going back in the past is the best way to kind of predict the future too. So this is kind of repeating patterns of things. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. So these things kind of are cyclical and they repeat. So I started to do a lot more historical research. And the more I started to look into history, I just realized that it was either, it sounds like a straight up lie, or there's just very vague parts of our history that we just kind of accept. And you're taught in school about, oh, this is what happened. But then you realize that this is a certain view that somebody has. And this might actually be a theory because we actually don't know. Like when I started to like research into Rome, historians debate within hundreds of years when Rome actually fell. And I thought, this is like a big deal. Like, why doesn't everyone know and agree? But you just find out that there's really vague parts of your history. And so when you continue to research that, you start to notice things like that once you just accepted for, oh, this is obvious, we're told the truth about this. But when you go into your local town and you see incredible old buildings that were always built in like the 1890s or some kind of date range in the late 19th century, early 20th century, well, how come we don't build buildings like this anymore?
I know, we were joking. It's like, we can't get a drywall wall that's straight without it having, curvature to it. And these things are ornate and very, very precise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's the thing. So like, if you can appreciate beautiful architecture, I think most people can, whether they realize it or not, it makes you feel a certain way. So you come into like a place and they have grand ceilings, like columns are 36 feet tall. You walk in, they got a painting of heaven on the ceiling, and you're like, this is pretty interesting. How did they have the time to do that? Was it a time of excess? Was it a time of prosperity? Was it a time of peace? But if you're focusing on America, we really never had that in our history. If you actually really think about, like, what we're taught is that, they fought a Revolutionary War in the late 1700s.
Right.
Then they fought the British again in the early 1800s.
Right.
Then they fought the Indians. They fought the Spanish. They were constantly in turbulence, and eventually we fought each other.
Right.
They had the Civil War. So during this whole time, America is expanding westward, and then they're just building cities. And if you go look at any of these old cities that were built supposedly between 1850 and 1900, they've all got old cathedrals. They all got Greco-Roman buildings. And this is like the first buildings they built when they started to found these cities. And that's the real question, is like, does that mean like, what if they just found these cities?
Literally stumbled on them.
They found these cities, and then the Freemasons are always given credit for building them. But what if it was just like Freemasonry? Like, what if it was somebody decided it was free because they found it? I know it sounds simplistic, but I mean, it actually makes more sense than what we're taught, because the math does not math on the westward expansion and then just the growth of these cities. If it was all about like a gold rush, well, wouldn't they kind of concentrate in one spot? Why are they stretched out all around the West Coast? And
so I guess one of the overarching theories that you explore is really ancient civilizations, ancient technology that has been lost, that we are not being given the full picture of what history is. And there's segments of history that are missing, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, my first kind of like almost like hobby conspiracy before I ever got into making videos was just like that show Ancient Aliens.
Right.
Because I thought it was just interesting. I said I grew up in a Christian church and I'd never really believed in aliens. But the questions were interesting. Like, how did they build the pyramids? And then when you find out like the pyramids are not just in Egypt, they're actually all around the world. They're like basically on every continent.
And now we found out there's one in Sedona.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, the way that show, even though it gets overly silly and their theories are, ridiculous. But other than that, a lot of people do present questions that do deserve answers. And then when you see like the academic answers for these things about how they were built, and the pyramids all around on every continent do not show a connected civilization. I just don't buy that. I think that there's something there. And from my perspective, even when we start talking about like more recent buildings, like when people say, how did they do it? I'm not telling people I know. I'm just saying I don't trust what they're telling us. And maybe that's kind of like when I bring it always back to the Bible, is I'm saying that, well, I believe this is true and everything else is suspect. So if you start believing this history that eventually will try to contradict what the Bible says, well, I can show you that a lot of this is silly. And you're taking this on faith way more than you're taking the Bible on faith, because I can show you a lot of things that the Bible predicted would come true, have come true. Now you're just trusting these men after the last 5 years. I think a lot of people who are awake, it's silly to trust some of these people.
Can you point to, say, one big issue that is like so obvious when you look at it from that perspective, saying, well, clearly we're being given wrong information about that?
Well, if you want to just focus on the buildings, I would say that the best example is probably San Francisco. I was really shocked to learn how short the timeline is between the discovery of it to it becoming like the city that we know today, or maybe not less so the city we know today, which is got a lot of issues. I think everybody would admit that it's a beautiful city, or it should be. It's not being taken care of like it should have been, but the landscape, the harbor, the Golden Gate Bridge, all the things about it are just, it's picturesque. But I was shocked when I found out that San Francisco, we're told, was not even discovered. Like the bay was not discovered until 1776. So the year that they fought the Revolutionary War, or at least they had the Declaration of Independence, that's the year that the Spanish supposedly discovered it. And then so no one really lived there outside of like Franciscan friars or people like that until like, I want to say in 1848, that the population of San Francisco was like 1,000 people.
Right. And then the story is the 1849 gold rush.
Yeah, the story of the 49ers.
Right.
And the interesting part about that is that the narrative says that many people moved out west because of gold. Now, where they were mining for gold was, in a lot of cases, about 50 miles from San Francisco. So that doesn't really quite fit like that you would populate this whole city with people who are miners. And if it was just miners, like, are they also part-time construction workers? Do they build the city while they're in the mines the other parts of the day?
Yeah, good point.
Now, if you actually look at it, so yeah, you have 1,000 people in 1848, then you have this boom in population. Right around this time, like what I think the camera was being invented like in the 1820s, but you have early pictures of San Francisco like in the 1870s. So like the very earliest pictures you have, there's a really famous panoramic shot of San Francisco, and you pan around the city, there's not one building under construction in the whole place, but it's completely filled out. And you can look in the background, you can see Greco-Roman things, and you can see old cathedrals. And the city looks like it's got age. Why I say this is a great example, though, is if you go back and there's old maps from the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s, where there's a place called either San Francisco or S. Francisco listed on the maps right where it's at.
Seriously.
But we're told that it wasn't discovered until like 200 years later. Yeah. I want to say it's like 1840. There's a picture that says S. Francisco where it's at. And that makes more sense because if you look at it, like the city had age to it.
And if you think about it, I mean, we have cities now that go through housing booms, people moving to the area, and they're putting up tract homes really fast because they're building to meet the population explosion. And those are poorly constructed. They're quickly put together. They're all the same. And the pictures that you're talking about, they're ornate. They're solidly constructed. How are they doing that within such a short period of time to meet a population boom?
I mean, I don't think it makes sense. I just think that when you look at some of these old cities too, you see that they look like they were centrally planned, and there's the city's all gridded out. If you look at like a kind of an aerial type shot of it, you're like, this is not just people just coming out there and then everybody just putting up a shack so they can have a place to sleep before they go mine for gold the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you couldn't just have people just move out west. You might get something like what you have maybe out here is like Tombstone.
Right.
Where you would have like wooden buildings all kind of in a row, just like these shops, these strip shops. That makes sense. But I said that was the kind of funny part about just being kind of like a guy who enjoyed movies, knowing that Tombstone, well, I mean, of course, the real story of Tombstone, I want to say it takes place in the 1880s, I believe. So to think that like what you picture of the Wild West is Val Kilmer and, and Kurt Russell and all those guys cussing and shooting each other and playing cards. And meanwhile, in San Francisco, it's like a cosmopolitan city. It's got everything like you have today. And I guess I just never really thought about it like that. What if some of these Western movies are kind of propaganda of like, this is what they want you to believe about this part of the country at this time period? Because when you start to think about that's the kind of advancements they had, and these cities were fully built out during the times of Tombstone, is it they want you to believe in, that show 1883,
right?
Where they're trying to go across, go on the Oregon Trail from Texas. And there's like a minimal chance that you actually survive to get there. Meanwhile, yeah, like I said, you have these full grown cities, like these places were settled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, of course, even today, there's still tons of land, but these places were settled then. Do they want us to believe that it was a more primitive time where it was cowboys and Indians?
Well, I guess that begs the question of why that would be.
That is a good question. That's an excellent question.
A question that comes up with a lot of conspiracy theories. But one of the things that Megan was looking into was the World's Fairs too.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night too. It's just, why would they lie to us though? Like, what's the purpose? Because if they know that Christ is coming back, was it to confuse people about Christ, you think? Or what's your belief on that?
I would just say that, well, these people are liars. I think that they take credit for most of the things, advancement. If you do look at what American history is basically taught to us, is that you have the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s and certain very prominent figures who are still, their companies are still pretty big today.
Of course.
You have your Rockefellers, you got your Vanderbilts, you got your JP Morgans, Andrew Carnegie, all those kind of people who are like the men who built America. They had that show on the History Channel. So if you think about it, these people basically monopolize every industry in America. And they take credit for all the advancements, the railways, and every modern convenience we have is partly due to them.
But in the end, God knows.
But what if the story is not true? What if it was the technology they had was either older, or what if there was an alternate technology that might not have been about fossil fuels, or what they call quote unquote fossil fuels? What if it was not about Standard Oil becoming like the biggest company in the whole world? If there was something that was maybe a renewable energy, if there was a more advanced technology that led to the buildings. Well, what if we had that today? That would give people a lot more power and give those people a lot less power. No, that's just a theory. Because I would say in the same way I said, if you go back to like the ancient Egyptian things, like the pyramids, I don't know how they built them, but I have a really hard time believing they did it with copper tools and they dragged gigantic stones across sand. So what did they have? They had something else. They had tools. They had real tools. They had advanced technology. And I would say that in our past, it's like very evident that there was advanced technology, because again, I don't care how good a craftsman is. If you chisel out a stone building that's made of granite and every detail is perfect.
How do they not make mistakes?
Exactly. It's like there's no do-over.
Right.
When you're chiseling little flowers in the ceiling and things like that, and they're all symmetrical and identical. I said, I just don't.
So is it just for power, you think? To make people not in as control of themselves, or so that they can keep it all and keep us kind of in the dark?
Well, that's a big component of it. Obviously, money and power is basically what runs this world. So I think when you say, kind of like when we say them or they,
or whoever
is
knows
doing it,
who did it.
I would say that not everybody knows exactly why. A lot of people just accept it. It's kind of like the idea that if you look the other way if somebody's giving you a bunch of money. Like some people don't even really want to know because they're doing well, versus the people who are probably not doing so well. They're more likely to ask questions, and they're the less likely to be believed because they're less powerful.
Or people that are making those movies, because you know what we were talking about last night is a lot of times in the movies they almost tell on themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at that Snake Eyes movie, it's weird with all the coincidence.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That line up with Charlie Kirk. It's like, are we living in a matrix in that sense? Like they know how to put things out and then align it with that. Like, how do you explain all that?
Well, there's the idea that some of this is like a kind of a karmic retribution type thing, where it's like they are telling us what they're doing. That's one of the beliefs. There's a thing called revelation of the method. It's kind of like if you were selling poison lemonade, but you actually have like a lemonade sign, and maybe you have like a little skull and crossbones, like really small in here. And if somebody buys the lemonade and they get sick or they die, we'd be like, well, I told them. So like my conscience is clean that I did that.
Oh, I see.
That's kind of twisted.
Oh, it absolutely is twisted. But that, again, this is just a theory. Nobody really knows exactly why. Sometimes we believe that it could be, I believe that through the music and through Hollywood, you definitely have demonic influence. So some of it could be like that people are writing these movies and they really don't even know what it means. Like they're including numbers that just seem as random and that pop into their head. But what if they are getting these, quote unquote ideas from, they're just plucking them out of the ether. Where are they coming from? And so when you look back, you're like, oh gosh, like, we talk about 9/11 a lot with like predictive programming. You see like The Simpsons, Neo's passport in The Matrix. His passport expires 9/11/2001. The movie comes out in 1999. It's like those kind of things are just, if you're bored one day, there's probably about 2 to 3 hours worth of stuff that is just all through the movies and just the numbers. And so, yeah, once you see that, you're like, it's too much. I don't really believe in coincidences like that anymore anyways. But like when you see the amounts of them, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. You ran probabilities on that Snake Eyes movie.
I did. I said, what's the probability? And I added, what exactly the facts were of the Snake Eyes and what aligned with Charlie Kirk. And it was like, I don't remember now, but it was like 1 out of 500 billion chance of that really actually weird. Having those all align up like that.
Yeah. When you see that, did you guys talk about all the details in there?
Kind of. I've posted it online. I don't think we've talked about it in the podcast. You can mention it. Yeah.
So in that movie, it's funny because I was telling Aaron, I had to delete a reel because a lot of people are saying that in the movie it mentions September 10th, but the poster, it's like a September 19th.
They said it's either a 0 or a 9.
Yeah, it's either a 0 or 9. Yeah. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it says September.
Yeah.
So this guy named Charles Kirkland gets assassinated during this boxing event, gets shot right in the neck.
On the left side of the neck.
Right in the spot that it looks like Charlie Kirk got shot.
But didn't you see the what's his face? Who's the actor in that?
Oh, it's Nicolas Cage.
He gets shot in the ear as it's going to hit the guy in the neck. Just like Trump got shot in the ear. So you see how he goes like this, he turns and his cheek is bleeding. He gets shot in the ear on the way to shooting this Charles Kirkland.
Yeah. And so on the movie poster, it says, again, there's a debate.
Yeah.
I think it's a 9, but let's say there's a fight on September 19th or 10th. So Charlie Kirk gets shot in September 10th. And the boxer that everyone's coming to see is Tyler, the executioner. Mm-hmm. So again, if you actually believe the news, you believe the FBI, Tyler Robinson is the one who killed Charlie Kirk.
Right.
Executed him. So, I mean.
And then there's a police car. Did you see that part? The van? There's a van that pulls up in the end. And I thought somebody had lied about it, but then I pulled it up myself. There's a police van pulling up at the end to arrest people. And it has 47 at the top.
Oh, I think I did see that. The other thing I want to say that the other connection was that you have this blimp going by and it's got like the Illuminati eyeball on.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, right at the same time. There might have been the other factors. I think that the fighter was actually supposed to be throwing the fight. So the fight was fixed. And so just all the kind of details here. And I want to say that there was also some kind of component that involved Israel in there. And just all the factors together. When you see that, you're like, we all ask ourselves that question, even though me and my friends have long believed that, this, whatever they're doing or however they're doing it. But we still have those kind of issues like that movie, Snake Eyes. It still gives us pause because it's hard to wrap your mind around it. Something being so on the nose about all the things that we just witnessed. And that's where people start to ask, are we like in the Matrix?
Right. It feels like that. It feels like
is this a simulation? No, I don't believe we're literally in a computer program, but it is interesting to think that there is a world outside of this world that God created and he put things in this world. So from a certain perspective, we are kind of in a matrix. We're like in God's matrix.
Everything's mathematical. If you've ever seen that one, who did we go see and everything is spiritual?
Rob Bell.
Have you ever watched Rob Bell?
Mm-hmm.
Rob Bell does Everything is Spiritual, and he goes down the numbers of even like how the Earth's atmosphere is. And if it was a little bit off here, a little bit off there, we wouldn't be able to breathe, and how everything comes down to an exact number.
Well, I mean, you do see that there's that Fibonacci pattern in things like, like a shell.
Oh, right? Yeah, I saw that.
So there is a mathematical equation to this place. And it makes sense that our God's a God of order. He created things with his voice. And is it a frequency vibrational thing that actually, that's the sound in the words he spoke created the things? So you can break it down by numbers. So would it be zeros and ones if you could see it in a computer? Maybe. Obviously you can, certain people can manipulate. Obviously Jesus could manipulate the things. And I don't want to really compare him to Neo, but I know that's the vibe they're going for. That he can bend reality. Like he can actually bend it to his will. So, I mean, in some kind of ways, it's like we don't understand it. I mean, there's also the belief that we live inside a place that is bound by time. But then if there was if beings that are outside of this time, are they seeing it kind of like in a flat circle? Are they actually seeing glimpses of it?
I watch a lot of near-death experiences. I don't know if you listen to those at all, but I've been listening to those for years. And these are people that, some of them have been in the hospital. One guy that I watched, he was a neurologist or neurosurgeon, Harvard teacher. And he was an atheist, and he ended up dying of meningitis, and his brain flatlined, and he actually died, and he left his body, and he had this angel showing him around heaven. And it was this blonde girl, and he just recalled what she looked like, and he knew he was adopted. So it wasn't his time. Everybody hears it's not your time. Mm-hmm. And he comes back, and they have proof, hospital proof, that he actually died. This isn't just like, oh, I felt like I died, I was on drugs or whatever. Mm-hmm. These people literally can say, I have medical records to show that I died for X period of time. And when he got back, he said, his name is Eben Alexander. He said, I wanted to go meet my adopted family. Not the adopted, his birth family. So he went to go meet his birth family, and there up on the mantle is a picture of this girl that had met him in heaven, this angel that showed him around.
Oh, interesting.
And he goes, who's that? And they said, oh, that's your sister who died 2 years ago. That would have been your sister. And it's cool things like that I really love watching. And I don't know how people feel about that, but I really love it because people get so emotional once they leave their body. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you're right. They don't feel time out there. Mm-hmm. They're like this, you're not bound by anything. It feels so freeing and peaceful. And most people that were atheists or believed in a different religion meet Jesus and come back, and they're so on fire for the Lord. And the Lord's like, I'm sending you back to give this message. And I know a lot of Christians probably don't feel like that's, a good thing because you're talking to the dead or whatever. But these people, you should look into it sometime. These people are, I think they've made movies about that, where that little boy died.
Sure. Heaven is real or something like that. Yeah.
And he knew his mom had a miscarriage and stuff like that. But it is interesting, the more that we feel like life is just so humanistic, where we feel like there's not too many mysteries.
Right,
and
sure.
People just live their life on that hamster wheel. And like we were talking about last night, am I going to wake up, get my job, get kids, eat dinner, and die, right? It's just this robotic life where if you really start looking into things, and you're called a conspiracy theorist, not you, but people that look into these things that are just kind of like off the beaten path, why aren't we more spiritual?
Well, I think that's what you said is exactly why. And maybe that's why you go back to your question about so why would they lie about things like the buildings? Is it because we have been put in a system, in a matrix that is about us being on the hamster wheel?
Yeah.
So we don't have time to even dwell on these. Why does it matter? That's what people always say. Like, why does it even matter? Well, the truth matters. Whether you want to acknowledge it, it does matter. And yeah, it's like you don't want to know because you're comfortable, I guess.
Well, do you think that maybe if we were stronger do you think these things would make us stronger in our faith and would not allow Satan to have so much of a rule? So it's more of like, if we knew like the things that are being held from us, it's not physical, it's more of a spiritual strength that we would have, and then he wouldn't have as much power as he'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it has a lot to do with the fact that where's your faith at? Because I think that if your faith in the institutions, like your government, the schools, and your jobs, and all the way the economy works, well, then your faith is not really placed in God. So if you acknowledge that the stuff that everything we believed from before is based on a lot of half-truths or just fabrications altogether, well, then you would say, I don't trust this place. And so therefore you have to come into agreement with God or something else. Now, if you're a Christian, you would say that, well, I'm not sure what's true, but I know that you're true. Your son's true. I know this, what you want me to do with my time here. Well, then, yeah, you're separating yourself from this matrix when you start to believe that. But really, like sometimes people talk about like flat earth and stuff like that. And they would say, why does this matter? Like, what does any of this have to do with anything? It's not really about the earth looking like this table or a globe. It's more about that if you believe that they would lie about something like that, well, then it really undermines every institution. And you're like, well, how could everyone be in on that? Well, the real truth is just because you can't figure it out doesn't mean it's not true. And so if those people are lying it, then you're talking about like, yeah, that the whole school system's jacked up. And so it's, you know what I mean? Because it's always like when you're pulling this thread of the sweater, like you continue to pull. And then some people would just say, well, I don't really care. Because I think eventually it's going to pull away something you find comfortable.
Absolutely.
About this. And I think that's ultimately when you do go down a bunch of rabbit holes, sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's sickening. Because you're like, sometimes you go down, this is just like, it's so fun. We giggle and we laugh about all the things we used to believe and how silly it all is. But then one day you find something out that's like really uncomfortable for you. And you're like, right. I don't want that to be true.
No.
Oh, yeah.
So we still have our own blind spots where you're like, I really don't want to believe that.
Just like anybody that knows how the phone works. Did the president really talk to them on the moon?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that T1 line.
In their tinfoil spaceship.
Oh man, that was one of my favorite videos I did when I was saying that, you know, so a couple of years ago was like, I think it was the last time I think they supposedly went to the moon was 1972, I believe.
Sounds about right.
So the last time they went was 53 years ago. And of course, I made the joke in the video and I was saying, here's what phones look like 53 years ago.
Why do I feel
and
like
here's
I saw it?
Richard Nixon using one of those phones to talk to the moon.
Yes. Are you sure it's
like,
72? I was born in 73. I feel like I watched it. Maybe it was a video.
It is so silly to believe that they had the capabilities to talk without some kind of a delay.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing. I remember like even, you know, we were talking about last night, we were talking about like the first Iraq war. And do you remember back in the day when you're watching like, you know, 24-hour news? Maybe there wasn't even 24 hours then, but they would have like CNN and they would have a correspondent and it'd be like the person's holding their earpiece and then
they would wait.
They got like 5 seconds before they can start answering the question.
Totally.
And then in 1969, they're just seamlessly like live streaming from the moon and just talking to them like that would be hard to do. Like we wouldn't be able to go to Sedona and do that probably because of the cell signal and everything. You know what I mean? Like we can't do that in 2025 in a place in the western part of America, but from the moon.
Well, they just use a really, really long telephone wire.
Oh man. I mean, but it is funny. It's like, that's the thing that people start to wonder, like how did, that's what I said. That's the kind of conspiracy that I giggle about. Cause it's so silly. I was actually just watching a video today. They were saying that the lunar lander that supposedly SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, is being delayed. It's taking too long, right? And so now NASA's going out to try to get outside bids from other space companies to provide them an alternate to their lunar lander. And so like Lockheed Martin is saying, you know, we don't have time. Your timeline doesn't make sense. We can't do it. But the funny part about all that being said is that they started this program called Artemis. You know, so the first moon landing program was called Apollo, which is funny. It's named after the sun god.
Right.
And then Artemis is his twin sister named after the goddess of the moon. So they rebranded this in 2017 with the mission to go back to the moon. Well, if you look at the timeline, when they started the Apollo moon mission, I want to say it was 1961. Well, within like 8 years,
they were able to
planting a flag on the moon. They're okay. So now you think like in 2017, they start the Artemis program. Well, it's already 2025.
We're there.
So it's already been 8 years. And so now at the earliest, they're trying to say that they can get somebody on there potentially in 2027. But at this point, there's problems with the lunar lander, supposedly. So Lockheed Martin saying they can't get one built before like 2030.
Well, and we just saw another video not too long ago, and they were pulling clips from actual NASA videos talking about going to the moon. And one of the big issues that NASA knows that's out there is some radiation belt between the Earth and the moon, and they're trying to figure out how to protect the astronauts through that radiation belt without them being killed. So they don't have the technology yet. They're trying to figure out what technology will
said they
save
threw it
them.
away, all the old technology.
Yeah, but they apparently had it back in.
Well, right. Again,
late
that's the real question is that do you believe that with 1960s technology, they could have went from starting day one to the moon in 8 years, and then in 2017 to today, they don't have the kind of technology.
Are we moving backwards in time?
Right.
It almost feels that way.
Well, and I think going back to both of your point about why, it goes to that whole science versus religion debate.
Yeah.
And I think with the big buildings, with the reliance on technology, it's more focusing on the autonomy of man and removing our reliance on faith in God.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that. If you believe that the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible, it was about them building a tower up to heaven,
right?
And then God deciding to divide up the nations because of that. Well, I mean, if you could get to the moon, isn't that even more of an affront to God than to building a tower that's really tall?
Right.
So would God have allowed that to happen? I mean, the question is from a lot of people is like, is the moon really just some big rock up in the sky?
Now they say we have two.
I mean, that is one of those things. I just saw an article about that. And it seems like it should be bigger news that they've discovered an extra moon. Like that's not made up. You guys can look that up. Supposedly it's in our orbit for like a short amount of time, but yeah, so maybe they can make it to the second moon. Maybe that might be easier to get there. Maybe that's harder or easier to get to that one or not. But no, there's a debate actually between people, and you can see out like there's a really old interview, and I can't remember who the guy said it was, but he didn't believe that the moon was actually even like a physical object, like a rock that's floating in outer space. He believed it was made of plasma or something else. It's really interesting when you look in the moon. It's like that. You ever seen like I want to say there's these flags that show like a crescent moon, and it shows a star in the middle of it. Sometimes you can actually see a star through the moon. Either that or it's in front of the moon. Like either way, it doesn't make sense. You ever notice like during the daytime, like the moon looks somewhat kind of almost transparent?
Yes, translucent.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that kind of gets into the question. Is this a more material view? Is that the kind of view they want us to have, that it is just a big dumb rock up there? Kind of like going back to what I was saying about like ancient aliens, is that they're trying to insert science and aliens and stuff back to our past to take away from the mythologies about gods from the heavens and giants. So what if that's kind of what they're doing? They're inserting aliens in our history that don't exist. And then now is it prepping us for a deception about aliens in the future, where if you think about before they had that book or that radio broadcast about War of the Worlds,
right?
Like who would even know what an alien was? Like, do you think anybody was talking about Martians and little green aliens and gray aliens and stuff?
That's why it had such a big impact on the radio listeners.
Right. So what if that's kind of like the conditioning with movies like Independence Day and every Spielberg and George Lucas movie? It's about potentially like an idea of like maybe there is going to be some kind of alien invasion. I don't know if they would be ready for it, but the idea is certainly circulated in their brains about that. Now you have this UAP phenomenon, you have gray alien spottings and people being abducted.
Right.
If something showed up, like even they have this thing called like the 3-eye atlas.
Yeah.
It's a thing that's been a lot in the news. And some people are saying, well, it could be some kind of an asteroid or something, or some part of a comet, or it could be, a spaceship. So is that what they're trying to do? And I'm sure a lot of people probably back home are probably saying like, this is a lot of lies. Like, again, the question is like, so, but why would they lie about it? For one, it's like they could definitely do it to make people afraid. And they could obviously justify a budget about outer space and the Space Force and all that because there's a threat. That seems like a logical reason. Or it could be that there's a thing in the Bible called Satan's little season, that's mentioned in Revelation 20 that,
Yes.
that Satan, after the millennial reign of Christ, is released from the bottomless pit to deceive the nations.
Wow.
You know, after Jesus comes back. So there's this theory, and of course, in my community, we've been talking a lot about this, is it possible that that's the reason why there is so much deception at this time? Is it possibly because it's like the devil's end game? Like he has to, every lie in the book is being thrown at us right now. And now we're kind of just like peeling this onion back.
So you're saying that we might be in the little season right now.
I'm saying that there's a good chance that we are.
Well, that is a whole other ball of wax. So if you don't mind, I think we're going to have to go to a part 2.
Of course.
All right. Thank you for joining Cross-Examine with the Gerbers. Don't forget, we do own Gerber Injury Law. So if you're injured, give us a call.